This is day 240 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you'd like to sponsor an upcoming share of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi or more, please contact me directly. It'll be very greatly appreciated. Today we're doing Siman Kuf Samach Zayin Sif Chav Tes until Siman Kuf Samach Ches Sif Gimel. So this is the day we Ezras Hashem Yisbarach exits Siman Chav Samach Zayin Chav Tes. Kaimon the Baal Botzeh Kaimon the Baal Bayis Botzeh Berachas Hamotzi. That we know, the owner of the house, the Baal Bus, makes the Berachas Hamotzi Kadesh Yivtza Ba'ayin Yofe. So he should cut it with a largesse, magnanimity. Afilu yesh gadol min ba'seiba. Even though somebody even though somebody greater than him at this party, nevertheless he is the botzeh. Yesh yishmor, those who say that there's one who says the yesh orech gadol. If there's a guest who is great, yochol chabed l'orech, he can honor the guest. That's Avram and then lechem chamudos. V'lo mash came back Gemara. This does not seem the case in the Gemara. Shevi ma'aseh the Rabbi Avo kibed Rabbi Zer shivtza. Brings out a story. Rabbi Avo wanted to give the honor to Rabbi Zer, who was the guest, that he should make a motzi. But lo ratzah, he did not want to do it. Misha Baal Bayis botzeh, because it is the task of the Baal Bayis. Ayin sham. If it's okay to honor somebody else, lomar, he shouldn't have said. So Rabbi Zer Lavor, that's Baal Bayis. Then Rabbi Zer should have accepted the directive of the Baal Bus. Everything that Baal Bus tells you to do, you're supposed to do. But since against halacha, that's why he didn't want to do it. If there is not, they're not in the house. If there is in the house, there is no Baal Bayis. Or for example, everyone's in a hotel, and everybody's a guest. The greatest among them, he is the one who makes the motzi. There's a kohen and he's equal in stature to all those who are gathered. I feel even a little bit less, a little bit lower. Mitzvah akdim, what's the mitzvah to go first? To him first. Achim wa'am ha'oretz. Maybe it's not since the Talmid Chacham present, Talmid Chacham koydem lo, Talmid Chacham to express it. Also, Talmid Chacham is not allowed to give the precedence to the Amoritz. I feel pachas mat, but if the Kohen is only slightly lower than the major Talmid Chacham, mitzvah lagdim, it's a mitzvah to give him first. Mark yomi bekach, that person who's mechabe the Kohen lives a longer life. It's Hashem. It's not mandatory to give to the Kohen. If I'm borechim artchila, b'rshus morai v'rabasai. You should say b'rshus in order to focus the people, that they should focus on being yotzei. Let's say leko kol minhag zeh. By us, again, there is no such minhag except on Shabbos. Because everybody makes a bracha for himself. There's a lot of Mishnah Berurah on this. Mishnah Berurah says, Lech Hamudas wrote that today we give cover to the Gadol. Mogen Avram agree with him, but several Achroim cast aspersion on this. But in Masuda, where each and every person eats from his own loaf and he borech to it for himself, it's certainly proper that Baal Bayis should be mechabe the Gadol, that he should make amotzi on his loaf first, because they're not distributing the loaf. Because since there's no concept here of issue of magnanimity and largesse. Mr. Berurah says, another example where there's no Baal Bus, everybody has participated in making this meal. It's kind of like a potluck dinner, and they eat together. Mr. Berurah clarifies that Gadol here means Gadol b'chachma, not in other ways. And the Mr. Berurah says that if the Talmid Chacham is not allowed to give the Kohen, who's of lesser stature, the permission to be Botzea, if he's doing it in a way on account of his kahuna. In other words, but if he's giving him Rishus to be a Varech, not because of the kahuna, then that's okay, which is interesting, halacha, because that means that Talmid Chacham has to enforce that Talmid Chacham is over a Kohen. But if he wants this time, they're friends, etc., then that doesn't fall in the category, and it's okay for them to be mechabe the Kohen. The Berurah says, even with the minhag is that everybody makes a bracha on his own loaf, nevertheless, as we saw, he said before, the minhag is that the Gadol should make the hamotzi on his loaf first. Lamed. Botzeh may not, the person who's making a motzi should not start cutting until most of the people present that finished answering are made. Mishmur says that specifically if he's being motzi them their obligation. Then back to Arukh HaShulchan. You don't have to wait for those who tarry in their remains. And those that are present may not eat from their bread until the person making a motzi eats from his bread. But you're allowed to distribute the piece of bread before you eat yourself. It's not a hefsek between the motzea's bracha and the eating. This is also part of the eating. Can't we talk about kulam because he's made the bracha of everybody, so everybody is participant. Miu b'Yerushalmi, he said the Rabbi ochel timas hamotzi b'smolo. Rab used to do it simultaneously. He used to he used to eat the hamotzi in his left and distribute the rest of the bread mimchalik b'yamino. Miu akopanim, as I'm assuming, regardless of which way you go, the people are present, they have to wait till the person who's making hamotzi eats from his bread. But that's if they require him to give them from his bread. If everybody has his bread in front of him, and you don't require the person to give him them of his loaf, then they can eat from their own loaves before the person who made a motzi eats from his loaf. But on Shabbos, they're not allowed to touch and taste anything. Even though each person has his own loaf in front of him. Unless anybody has lechem mishnah in front of him. The locain, if that's they don't, hayotzim, lechem mishnah shabotzea. They're related to lechem mishnah of the person who's making a motzi. But korcham tzrichim amtin alav actually Talmud, they have to wait till he tastes. So it's interesting halacha, which I did not know before that anyway. That on Shabbos, the person who makes a motzi is the one who has to have lechem mishnah, and he can be motzi the others with lechem mishnah by making that motzi on his lechem mishnah, and then they can eat from their loaves, but they have to wait till he eats from the lechem mishnah first, so they have been yotzei through him the din of lechem mishnah. Mishnah Berurah says that the Taz says that it's not kedai for the botzea to distribute to every person their portion. Because anyway, they're not allowed to taste it until he tastes it. So therefore, it is a hefsek between the bracha and the eating, and that's also the chatchila. But first he should taste, and afterwards give to each one of them. And many achronim write this, and I knew about this Mishnah Berurah, but I don't do it anyway that way because it feels shlopi derech hamusar to grab a bite before everybody else gets their piece. So I always give out the pieces and then take my bite from my chal. Mishnah Berurah says that. That nobody that which you're not allowed to eat before the botzea eats, it's only when they yotzei with the botzea. But says even if they were mechamed to be yotzei with his bracha, everybody's making bracha themselves since they're all zakuk lekikaro shel botzea. Not sure exactly what that means. Since they all require the kikaro botzea, maybe when it's like a mishnah on Shabbos. No, but that's not what he's talking about. No, this was oh, I see. Everybody's making their own hamotzi, but on slices which were sliced from the main loaf. So therefore, since they need him to slice, so therefore it's not covered to taste before he tastes. Mishnah says that not just on Shabbos, that they're not allowed, that they have to use the Mishnah, but also on Yontif, which of course makes sense. Lamed Aleph. The person who makes motzi puts a piece of bread in front of each and every person. He should not toss the bread. But the also is pas, you're not allowed to toss bread. Also, you're not supposed to give the piece of bread from your hand into the hands of those who are sitting around. Unless the name he puts in front of them, and they take from the table. It's not that it's prohibited to put in their hands. It's not a good sign to give from hand to hand. The siman cha, and the way you remember that is persot tzion biyadeha, when tzion extended with its hands. So that was a sign of avelus in Echa Peragav. Avelus to miyad liyad, and the other give from hand to hand. Perag zayin din hey ayin sham. On Shabbos, the other on Shabbos, even to an other, you do not put into his hands, because it's a fails with Farhesia. The ain't available for Shabbos, no available in public on Shabbos. I would say a poshet yadol tchila. The person makes a motzi, puts his hand first lekara into the plate le'echol. That was the serving plate of the dishes, which come out of the what's the word? The courses as they come on the table. Being brought lachlok kavod gadol, man, if he wants to give honor to somebody who's greater than himself, Rasha is permitted to do so. But ain't show. Don't ask if there is a greater person. Why was he botzea? Obviously, if he's Balabas, he does the betzia. The raka Balabais botzea. The only Balabais is the one who's supposed to break the bread. Because Rabbeinu Ram Babasiv Chaf. The Yeshlachol Prusas at Moti Bishlemus. Kom Shechol Pasacher. Ramah says you're supposed to eat a piece of bread of hamotzi in its totality before you eat other bread. In order to be eaten with relish. Because of the preciousness of the mitzvah. Ad kan l'shona. Since the brach was made over it, it's not appropriate to give it to a non-Jew or to an animal. Some people say that you should leave a little bit of that moti until the end of the meal. Our meaning is like whatever the Ramah says, not like that. Yesh omrim. But he brings down here, interesting, the brackets. Them taisvis. It's muchach lehedya da chosin tzarich litzah. Simchas chosin requires the chosin to be the one to be botzea on the bread. Mishabura says that the Shloach Kodesh says that you should leave a little bit of the bread of a motzi until after you eat, in order that sorry, I misunderstood the Mishnah Berurah. I mean the Arukh HaShulchan. To leave the bread to the end means you should eat you leave a little bit of motzi at the end to eat at the end. So you should finish the meal with the taste of that motzi in your mouth. That's what Mishnah Berurah does say you should do. You should leave a little bit till the end and then finish the meal with a little bit of a piece of motzi to finish the meal with that taste. The Mishnah Berurah says the chasan makes a motzi even though there are greater people than him present. Lamed base. Mishain ochel, somebody's not eating, can't make a motzi to somebody else. If you're not eating, you can't make a brichas of somebody else. The dafka brichas of mitzvahs only brichas of mitzvahs. Person can make a bracha for his friend, since all Jews are responsible for one another. And if you don't do your mitzvah, if I didn't do mitzvah. But that's not true by a bracha on hanoah, on pleasures. You don't make a bracha unless you have the pleasure. But for minors, you can make a bracha. When they can't make a bracha on their own, even though you can't eat it on yourself, that's a big chiddush. You make a bracha. Not only that, Mishnah adds even Ketanim which are not your own children, where you don't, strictly speaking, have to be mechanech them. Nevertheless, it's permissible to make the bracha with them when they want to eat and they don't know how to make the bracha themselves. Back to the Arukh HaShulchan, b'afilu b'Shabbos sheyesh chiyuv le'echol bas. Even Shabbos says requirement to eat bread. Mikom kol lo yibrach bar chavero she'eno chol batzon. Nevertheless, he does not make the bracha for his friend when he's not eating himself. For brichas bar priyagavan shel kiddush, as we mentioned already before, and the bracha bar priyagavan kiddush bein l'ayla bein yom. It's the day or the night. Achilas matzah in brichas hamotzi l'rishon pesach and achilas matzah. Both the bracha on the matzah and the achilas matzah shem chovos. Kimurim, which are absolute obligations, mitzvahs like every other mitzvah. You may make the bracha for your friend, and the Mishnah Berurah also, even though you're not eating yourself. And Mishnah says it's true also about the first and second nights of Sukkot, obviously, where you're chayav to eat a gazayis in the sukkah. You can be motzi another person, even though you yourself are not tasting from it. Siman kuv chavches. Al eize pas mevorchim hamotzi. Which bread you make a motzi? There is a preference order preference on which bread to make a motzi when they're both in front of him. But you want to eat from both of them. Wheat bread takes precedence over barley bread. A whole roll or loaf before takes precedence on a cut roll or loaf. Pasnoki, a clean piece of bread, comes before a coarse piece of bread. Pascoto, a large piece, takes precedence over a small piece. Bain beprusa hagodo kodem ubain b'shlema. This is true where they're both cut or they're both sholem. Shlema katan, but if the katan is sholem, kodem beprusa hagodo, it comes before the cut large piece of bread. And even if the bread is the shalom is of lower quality than the sliced bread, such as the sliced bread is from fine flour. And the whole bread is from kamach pashut, simple flour. Even though now the sliced bread has two advantages over the whole bread, that it's larger and that it's cleaner. If they're both of the same type, wheat or barley, etc., then the smaller takes precedence. Ushtei prusos, two slices, achas lov, achas nekia, one which is larger, one which is cleaner. Nekia according to the cleaner one, takes precedence. The noki adik migodo. The cleanliness takes precedence over the sides. So too two whole ones, echad godo v'asheni noki. One which is bigger and one which is cleaner. The cleaner comes first. Two kodim. Because Rabbeinu Beisir Steve Dalit. If they're both clean, one is whiter than the other. Make a bracha on the whiter one. If the second one is bigger, even though the first one is whiter, yeshli stapik. And yochel says kutono, do as you please. Nearly the passion lanu. He says, in our bread, this is not Losha Claudian Zed, this halacha is totally relevant. Mishlono Kol Shavana Yoser, Hinikia Yoser, but it happens to be that whatever's whiter is also cleaner. I don't know if it's still true, but that was so type Arukh HaShulchan. The Mishabura throws in that you do make a bracha on the whiter one, even if the second one is larger. But if the second one is chaviv, even though it's not as white, you make it's more. You like it better, make the bracha on the one you like. Base. This is all in one type. One is wheat and one is barley. The wheat takes precedence. Even it's sliced, the katan and small. It's not clean. The barley bread is sholem, is large. The gadol is whole, the gadol and large, v'naki and clean. The came in the chsiv, it says the pasuk eretz chita usara, around the wheat and barley. The kan mikra chita usarim, and the pasuk gives preference to wheat over barley. Who come the wheat comes always first. The Gemara says that if you erase shemaim can kill two birds with one stone. The he has a whole bread of barley and a slice of wheat bread. He puts the sliced bread into the whole bread, but and it cuts from both of them, and it cuts whatever, however you can do it. Cut from both of them together, and make the bracha. Even though the Gemara says that the primary halacha is that the sliced wheat bread comes first. It's just I'm not sure how to translate that off. I guess like Eder Mitzvah in this case. Shari Aim is absent because there's no loss. That's specifically by barley bread. Barley bread. I will pass shifon shlanu, but by rye bread, shekorin korin, hagam shizum means orim, even though it's a type barley. Komakom nevertheless came in first by Torah, so explicit Torah ain't circumfil reishman l'soskei. Reishman does not have to combine the breads. That's why we don't do this. But the pashlon iyam shalitena prusa v'sol. So I said, I guess that's like bagels or something, because they could put the sliced one into the whole one, but by us, there's no way to put it in. Let me just check on what that shifon is what I said it was. Yes, shifon is right. Gimel. Yesh goes to the Yesh shniya. Some say shnayim. Sorry, some say there are two pieces of bread for two people. Sorry, two people. Yivar Echa Pru Shlema, once you make the bracha on the Shlema Shel Sorim, on the whole loaf, which is barley. Chara Pru Shel and one on the sliced piece of wheat bread. Marashal, the Bach, and the Shlom, Mata Moshe. But nearly the Akibirusho. So what does they mean to say? Vadi Echad Yotzei Brichas Hasheni. One of them saying Yotzei the bracha, the other one you have Shalom King. You can't say that. El Kagon et Slain, rather, it's like Bayach. Shekol Chad Mevarek Livnei Atzma. Everybody makes the bracha on his own. Ushneim Yoshi Yach B'Shol B'Shul, and they both sat together on the table. Mimel Dechel Lokech Prus Hashol Yichita Kedin. So therefore, one of them takes the sliced piece of wheat bread as is appropriate. Then, therefore, Yachol Hasheni Likach Hashlema Shel Sorim. The second guy can take the second piece of bread, the whole one of barley, uvarich, and make the bracha. If it ain't tzarich lamtin, it doesn't have to wait until the first fellow finishes his bracha on the wheat bread and cuts. And the cutting. Since the first guy took that one already, the wheat bread, since there's no other bread in front of him, and therefore, he makes samotzi on that whole piece of barley bread, which he has. The time Moshe Dover said, the reason for this is, they came to Chazin that Shas, he drolet says to Deshneim. The Shas says it's best to say both by putting one into the other. Agam Onosim came they covered as Shlema. We would also do this, if we could, by a sliced piece of bread and a whole piece of bread. And that's where you have a slice from one type and the sholem from another type. So they're both sholem. They're both sliced. They're both one type. Lo Yasakein shouldn't do this. Saying they should most make a bracha on whatever is the most appropriate according to the order of preference. If they're both whole, or prusas, both sliced. One of them is wheat. We should both make bracha on the wheat. And if both of them are wheat or barley, each one should make a bracha on one of them. They're both if they're both chitim or both sorim, then each one should make a bracha on one of them. Being achas chitim, achas sorim, one of them is wheat and one of them is barley. Yivaru shem achita should both make the bracha on the wheat bread. Yamti echad shivoracha acher, and the one should wait until the other person finishes making the bracha. Charkach yivarechu, and then he should make the bracha. So that's preferable. But one guy already took the wheat bread for himself. So then you can take the barley for yourself. You don't have to wait for him. Birlocha says, the Marshal says, the Torah about Bais is making a bracha on wheat bread, and he's motzi the person who's by him with his bracha, and that it's better that the guest should hold a shlema at the time of the bracha, even though it's a barley. Because this makes it clear that it also has significance, and that's better than putting both pieces of bread together, where each one is not given weekly, of course. Each one is not being given its own significance.